In the dead of night, a house creaks. Shadows shift, a light flickers. Fear widens an eye. Something waits unseen just beyond the cracked window. Returning home after surviving a stroke at 12 felt like facing the worst. My grandmother took over my bedroom, just one change disrupting our lives. That day, my uncle installed a new air conditioner, leaving a gaping hole in the wall. He wedged a cardboard box into the opening, a flimsy barrier against the night. The house felt different, charged with tension as we camped out together. The hole in the wall mirrored the anxieties we tried to ignore. Oblivious, the peace was about to be shattered by a sound etched in our memories. The clock glowed 3 a.m. Lost in our digital worlds, the only sound was the tap-tap-tapping on our phone screens. Then a faint, dry, rustling sound. It seemed to come from the cardboard box. A furtive scratching noise. I paused my game, listening. It had to be a cat. Then my uncle's head shot up. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. The rustling had returned, more insistent. "Yeah, but it's probably just a cat." But the sound wasn't playful. The silence in the room felt heavy. My uncle grabbed the flashlight. He motioned for me to stay still. He pointed the beam into the darkness. The yard was empty. It was eerily quiet. Just as we relaxed, we heard something new. Heavy footsteps crunched on the gravel outside. Someone large was walking around the house. We switched off the flashlight, tense. The steps continued, circling. We had to see what was out there. We decided to peer through the hole. A scream ripped through the silence. It was my younger brother, waking from a nightmare. Then a new sound froze us, heavy footsteps on the roof. The sound from the roof was different. This was the heavy, thudding sound of boots on shingles, moving with a terrifying purpose. The illusion of safety was completely gone. "What's going on?" my uncle stammered, his voice filled with genuine fear. We scrambled away from the wall, huddling together. I was convinced we were about to be discovered. Then the footsteps stopped. The silence that followed was somehow even more terrifying. A neighbor had been murdered in their home on the very same night we heard the footsteps. Those weren't burglars, they were killers. It was a Friday night, but my phone remained stubbornly silent. The city outside was alive, and I couldn't bear the thought of sitting home alone. I needed to drive. There was something about the rhythmic motion of the car that always calmed my restless mind. I drove with no destination in mind. I found myself on a deserted one-way street where the entrance to an underground parking lot gaped like a dark mouth. The lot looked perfect, secluded and empty. I descended into the subterranean space. After finding a spot, I lit a cigarette. It was a heavy, expectant silence. I finished my cigarette and got out of my car, unaware that I had just walked into a trap. The walk back up the ramp was darker. With each step, the feeling of being watched intensified. My heart was pounding by the time I reached the main level. That was when a voice shattered the silence. "Hey!" I froze instantly, my entire body going rigid with fear. Slowly, I forced myself to turn. Standing a few yards away was a tall man, his face obscured by the shadow of a hoodie. He began to speak, his words frantic, about how he had just escaped from prison. As he spoke, I saw the distinct outline of a handle. It was a knife. My mind raced, trying to process the sheer terror of the situation. I was alone deep underground with a man who claimed to be an escaped convict and was very likely armed. Panic was a roaring fire in my chest, but I knew that showing fear would only make things worse. I had to stay calm, to think my way out of this. I forced my voice to remain steady, trying to sound bored and unimpressed, as if I dealt with escaped criminals every day. "Look, man, I'm sorry to hear that," I said, my words sounding hollow in the vast empty space, "but I've got to get to my night shift. I invented a job on the spot, something that might sound just grim enough to be believable. I work at the cemetery," I lied, hoping the morbid detail might deter him. "I'm already late." I took a small, cautious step towards my car, testing his reaction, but my attempt at de-escalation had the opposite effect. His tone shifted instantly. The rambling desperation replaced by a sharp, angry edge. "No," he snarled, taking a menacing step towards me. "You're going to help me." His eyes, barely visible under the hood, glinted with a dangerous light. The pretense was over. This wasn't a plea for help, it was a demand. His right hand twitched in his pocket, his knuckles straining against the fabric. The outline of the knife seemed to grow larger, more defined. My survival instinct screamed at me to give him what he wanted: money. That's all this could be about. Okay, calm down, I stammered, raising my hands in a gesture of surrender. I quickly reached into my own pocket and pulled out the few crumpled bills I had on me, maybe $10 or $15. I held the money out to him, a pathetic offering that I prayed would be enough to satisfy him and make him leave me alone. His eyes darted down to the cash in my hand, and a guttural, angry sound escaped his throat. "That's it!" he yelled, his voice echoing off the concrete walls. "You think that's enough?" He was furious, his rage escalating with every passing second. He took another step closer, closing the distance between us. I was trapped, with my back against a concrete pillar and a wall of anger and violence in front of me. I could smell the stale sweat and desperation on him. He was about to lunge, his hand finally starting to pull the object from his pocket. My life was about to end in this cold, empty garage. Just as he lunged, a sudden bang echoed from the garage. The noise made us both flinch. It was a split-second distraction, but it was all I needed. I ran for the small elevator. I could hear his heavy footsteps behind me. Adrenaline surged through my veins. I slammed the elevator button, praying it would respond quickly. The sound of his footsteps grew closer. Just as he was about to reach me, the elevator doors slid open. I scrambled inside. The doors began to close slowly. The elevator began its ascent. Even now, years later, the memory is vivid. I often wonder what would have happened if that security door hadn't made a noise. That random sound was the only thing that stood between me and a gruesome end. My name is Dio, and what I'm about to tell you is a true story. It's not a nightmare I had or something I misremembered from childhood. This really happened. The police were involved, reports were filed, and because of what my friend and I did, a very dangerous man is now in prison. But knowing he's locked away doesn't erase the memory or the chilling realization of how close we came to not being here at all. It all started with a simple invitation, one that seemed completely innocent at the time, but was masking a deep and terrifying secret that was about to explode into our lives. It began on a Tuesday during a mind-numbingly boring history class. The teacher was droning on about ancient civilizations, and I was seconds away from falling asleep at my desk. Suddenly, a folded piece of paper landed on my table. It was from my best friend, No. I unfolded it carefully, hiding it from the teacher's view. The note was simple. His parents were going out of town for the weekend, and he wanted me to come over on Saturday for a sleepover. We hung out at each other's houses all the time, so this was nothing out of the ordinary. It sounded like the perfect escape from weekend boredom. Saturday finally arrived, and I was excited. I packed a small bag with all the essentials for a classic teenage sleepover: my toothbrush, a change of clothes, and the new video game I'd just bought. My parents, ever cautious, insisted I also take my personal safety alarm and a small can of pepper spray. I rolled my eyes but put them in my bag anyway, thinking I'd never have a reason to use them. It felt overly dramatic, but it was the price of freedom. Little did I know that their paranoid precaution would end up being the most important thing I brought with me that day. When I got to No's house, something felt off. The moment he opened the door, he wasn't his usual cheerful, energetic self. He looked pale and nervous, his eyes darting around as if he was expecting someone else to show up at any moment. He was trying to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. I asked him if everything was okay, if he was feeling sick. He just shook his head quickly and mumbled, "Yeah, everything's fine, come on in." But I knew my friend. He was hiding something, and the anxious energy radiating off him was starting to make me feel uneasy too. We tried to settle into our usual routine, but something was off. No barely touched the game, distracted and anxious, glancing at his phone and the clock. I finally confronted him, demanding to know what was wrong. His mask crumbled. He confessed he was being stalked by a man he met online who threatened to come tonight at 8 and kill his parents if he told anyone. The horror hit me. It was 7:55 p.m. We had 5 minutes. There was no time to run or call for help. We were trapped. At least now we knew what we were up against. The threat was real and time was up. I grabbed my pepper spray, told No to be ready to call the police. We waited, every sound amplified by fear. At 8, a harsh knock rattled the door, then angry banging and the man's voice shouting No's name. We hid behind the fridge as glass shattered. The man was breaking in, his voice echoed closer. "I told you I was coming, I'm here to kill you." We were no longer hiding, we were being hunted. Hiding wouldn't save us, we needed a plan. I whispered to No, create a distraction on the other side of the kitchen. As the man turned, I ambushed him with pepper spray, then hit him with a frying pan. He collapsed, screaming. No called 911, shouting our address. Police arrived, arresting the stalker, his car full of tools for murder. The reality of what almost happened was sickening. We survived, but the terror would haunt us. The thin curtain of safety had been ripped away for all of them. In one house, two brothers and their uncle waited in paralyzed silence, killers lurking outside. In a parking garage, a young man ran for his life, hunted by a knife-wielding predator. In No's kitchen, the fight for survival was immediate and brutal. Fear was everywhere, but so was action. Each victim was forced to become a fighter. The night had turned them all into survivors. The true horror is the moment you must face the monster. For the family, it was the silence after footsteps on the roof. For the young man, it was the closing elevator doors as his attacker lunged. For Dio, it was standing over the wounded stalker, ready to fight again. These moments define us, when survival is all that matters. The threat is no longer distant. It's here, now, demanding everything you have. In those seconds, courage is the only way forward. The illusion of safety is the most dangerous illusion of all. We build our lives on it, brick by brick, lock by lock. We tell ourselves that horror happens to other people in other places. But in these three separate nightmares, that illusion is shattered into a million pieces. The thin veil between the ordinary world and the abyss tears open, revealing the terrifying reality that lies just beneath the surface of our daily lives. The boy learns that a simple hole in the wall can be an invitation for monsters. The killers were a real and present danger, pacing on their roof. In the parking garage, the young driver learns that solitude is vulnerability. The city can be the loneliest and most dangerous place on earth. The man with the knife was a manifestation of the darkness that lurks in the city's forgotten corners. The horror began with a friend request, a seemingly harmless connection in a world where we are all connected. They learn that the digital world and the real world are not separate. The climax is the moment you realize the monster is real and it has found you. The stories you have just heard are over. The immediate danger has passed. The police have filed their reports. The wounds have begun to heal, and the survivors are left to piece their lives back together in the quiet aftermath. But the horror does not truly end when the sirens fade. It lingers, leaving an indelible stain on the memory. It is the chilling knowledge that for a few terrifying minutes the ordinary world fell away, revealing the abyss that lies just beneath. This is the true legacy of terror, the permanent understanding of how fragile safety truly is, a constant reminder of the evil that walks in the darkness just outside our homes. The experience has rewired his perception of the world, turning mundane environments into potential traps. They are testaments to the razor-thin line that separates a normal life from a waking nightmare. The silence that follows the storm is often the most haunting part because it is filled with the memory of the terror that came before. Every story of survival is also a story of vulnerability. Horror finds a way in through a door that was metaphorically and in one case literally left ajar. A hole in a wall, a decision to take a late-night drive alone, a casual acceptance of an online friend request. These are the tiny cracks in our defenses through which the darkness seeps. They are moments of carelessness or innocence that are exploited by a world that is far more predatory than we like to admit. These stories teach us that there is no such thing as safe enough. The decision to seek solitude in an empty underground parking lot is another such door left ajar. Perhaps the most insidious example is that of the Facebook friend request. This is the new frontier of horror, where the threat can enter not through a broken window, but through the Wi-Fi router in your living room. The ultimate lesson from these harrowing experiences is a deeply unsettling one. The darkness is patient. It does not always strike with the sudden fury of a lightning bolt. Often it is a slow, creeping presence that observes and waits. It learns our routines, our weaknesses, and our moments of inattention. The killers circling the house were not in a rush. They were methodical, testing the perimeter, listening for signs of life. The stalker didn't attack on the first day. He gathered information, learned No's schedule, and waited for the perfect opportunity when his parents were gone. This patience is what makes them so terrifying. This patience means that the threat is ever present, even when it is not visible. It is a constant potential, a low hum of danger beneath the surface of our everyday lives. We may go weeks, months, or even years without incident, lulled into a false sense of security. We forget to lock a door, we walk home with headphones on, we trust a stranger too easily, and in that one moment of complacency, the patient darkness makes its move. It exploits the one mistake we make after 1,000 correct decisions. The survivors of these stories were lucky, but their tales are a warning about the consequences of letting our guard down, even for a second. The world is full of shadows, and we can never be certain what lurks within them. These stories serve as a stark and vital reminder that we must remain vigilant. We must trust our instincts. That feeling of being watched, that sense of unease in a quiet place, that flicker of doubt about a new acquaintance. These are not paranoid delusions, they are our primal survival mechanisms trying to warn us. They are the whispers from our subconscious telling us that something is wrong, that the patient darkness may have finally fixed its gaze upon us. We must learn to listen to that voice. So as you go about your life, remember these stories. Remember the footsteps on the roof, the voice in the garage, and the man with the screwdriver. Let them be a reminder to check the locks, to be aware of your surroundings, and to be cautious about who you let into your life, both online and off. The barrier between safety and terror is thinner than you think, and the darkness is always waiting, patiently, for you to make a mistake. Don't miss out on our next tale of survival. Subscribe now, and be prepared for what lurks in the night.